Hey guys, welcome back to today's video. Today is Monday, October 24th, 2022, and we are 15 days away until the 2022 midterm elections. Things are getting so close. And in today's video, we are going to be talking about specifically the state of Alaska. Now, why Alaska? Well, this is a state that recently had a special election, which I'm sure many of you know was covered on my channel and by the mainstream media. The reason why it's so significant is because a Democrat actually won in Alaska's special election for the first time in 50 years. It had been held by Representative Don Young, who unfortunately passed away. He was a Republican who won quite literally every single election in the House of Representatives from Alaska since 1973 up until 2020. So with the Democrats winning in the state of Alaska, it was quite a significant move and quite a significant victory for National Democrats. They saw it as a major one, but Republicans saw the November election as their immediate return to holding the office from the state of Alaska. But as of recent, we seem to have known that this is no longer going to be the case. The expectations in the Alaska House race are that now Mary Peltola, the Democratic congresswoman elected from the state, is going to win re-election, and it looks like she has more backing even beyond the Democratic Party. Now, for a bit of context, the state of Alaska is a state that President Trump won in 2016 by 14 points and in 2020 by 10 points. Mary Peltola, on the other hand, won her House race by about 3 percentage points statewide. Now, she didn't win by this overwhelming margin. 3 points is not exactly something that I would say is a blowout, but it was a very shocking victory, largely because the state itself is still Republican. Sarah Palin was Mary Peltola's #1 opponent. There was also Nick Begich on the ballot, who came in third place because they actually utilized ranked choice voting. It's one of the very few states. I think this state and Maine are the only two states in the entire country, and quite frankly, they're on opposite ends of the country from each other, which is also quite interesting. But what happened in the state of Alaska was essentially that Sarah Palin and Mary Peltola ended up in the final round, which meant you had a former governor, someone who used to be extremely popular, ran as the vice presidential nominee under John McCain in 2008, ran against Mary Peltola, who wasn't known for necessarily electoral history. She had worked on the Don Young campaign. Her family had been associated with Don Young, but beyond that, she was known for her work in the fishing industry. That's really what she had served in her max capacity, and that's what elected her to Congress, in addition to Sarah Palin's unpopularity. But voters saw this, and Democrats and Republicans across the country saw this as a complete and total electoral upset, which meant that it probably should not be repeating itself. In fact, the betting markets at that point in time did not expect Mary Peltola at practically any point in the campaign season to actually end up winning. You can see that in the final stretch. You can see here that Nick Begich started out with a very substantial lead, and then it went to Mary Peltola. If we add in Palin, it gives a little bit more additional context, but you can see that Palin on election day had 74 cents or by the time we actually saw the votes counted, and then ultimately, by the end of it, Mary Peltola ended up winning. So it's a very, very interesting, takeaway from what we saw in the special election, but Mary Peltola, in many ways, is on track to win re-election. Enough so that Lisa Murkowski, if you recognize her name, it's because you should. She's a Republican senator from Alaska who was first elected back in 2004, who says that she will be ranking Mary Peltola, not second, not third, but first on her congressional ballot. This is a Republican senator, one of two from Alaska, ranking a Democrat as her #1 choice, and likely will be ranking her as a #1 choice as we continue through and through election after election. Mary Peltola is someone who has done the impossible, that Alaska Democrats have been really looking for a shot and an opportunity to win across the state. And now she serves to be the most popular politician in the entire state. Because it isn't just the tea leaves that are telling us that Mary Peltola is going to win. It is the extremely accurate polling data that has been released from the state, especially one released today, that tells us that Mary Peltola is going to win. Alaska Survey Research, which did a poll in the special election, we can actually take a look at that, which was extremely accurate, pitted against each other Sarah Palin and Mary Peltola in head-to-head matchups, in addition to pitting together Nick Begich and Mary Peltola, where we saw two very different results. But in their final poll, they found that Sarah Palin and Nick Begich were statistically tied. Even though they had Nick Begich as getting second place, he ultimately ended up running behind this by just a few percentage points, Sarah Palin outperforming by just a few percentage points. Mary Peltola being roughly exactly where she was. I mean, you can take a look at the rounds here. Let's see if we can find it. In the primary election, Mary Peltola actually was in the lower position, but when we headed off into the first round, I don't know if it's going to show us the round breakdown. We covered it before. Here it is, 40% to 31 to 28. That's not too far off at all from where we were before. The interesting thing here is that Mary Peltola actually was not intended to be the front runner for this race. Dr. Al Gross, he ran for Senate back in 2020, was supposed to be the Democratic Party's realistic chance. Mary Peltola only got 10% of the vote here, so it could have gone much worse for the National Democratic Party, but realistically, I mean, she is the best case scenario that we have seen. And when the predictions came in saying likely and safe Republican, people were expecting this race to easily go to the GOP. But Alaska Survey Research told us that if the matchup was between Palin and Peltola, that Peltola would end up winning, but by a narrow amount. And guess what happened? That's exactly what happened when it came down to this race. It was nearly perfectly represented by Alaska Survey Research, and here they are again, showing Mary Peltola with an even more substantial lead. They find, first of all, when it comes down to approval rating of all of these candidates, that Mary Peltola has a 52% positive rating from the voters in the state, contrary to 27% negative. Just 1 in 4 people view her in a negative fashion versus Sarah Palin, which is at 61%, the front-running Republican. Nick Begich, who is a Republican, he has a brother, Mark Begich. In fact, there's a whole electoral dynasty in the state of Alaska, but Mark Begich is a Democrat who served in the Senate from the state of Alaska. Nick Begich is his grandson or son. I'm not entirely sure. I should probably catch up on that, but he's the lesser known person. People don't know exactly who he is, but Mary Peltola in herself holds an extremely high positive approval rating. It's a very good look, and it's one that is driving her to a really good shot at re-election. Because they find in their first round, the first round, where you have a Libertarian, you have 2 Republicans, and a Democrat, that Mary Peltola is getting already 49% of the vote. By round 2, she wins the election. You don't even need to split the GOP vote. The combined GOP vote is not enough to defeat Mary Peltola. When you do actually, though, eliminate the third place person, because that's sometimes what you do with ranked choice voting, though, typically when you pass the 50% mark, that's when they call the election. But you can see here in the hypothetical, if there was to be a head-to-head matchup, that Mary Peltola and Sarah Palin would be a replication of before, but significantly more in favor of Mary Peltola. She would defeat Sarah Palin 57 to 43. But between Mary Peltola and Nick Begich, guess what happens? The race is no longer in favor of Nick Begich as it once was in the special election by a quite substantial amount. I mean, I'm showing you this. It would have been 55 to 45, 57 to 43, depending on the circumstance. But you can see here, what I take away from this is that these numbers tell us that Mary Peltola's popularity is bringing her to a more electoral standpoint every single time. And Alaska Survey Research, quite frankly, is not the only firm that is giving us these results. You can see it with Dittman Research. You can see it with Fabrizio and Impact. They together did a nonpartisan poll, and what does it all agree on? This blue column is highlighted every single time. And to know the fact that there is a Republican senator voting for Mary Peltola, think about that for a moment. An endorsement from one of the state's most recognizable and influential figures on the national and statewide level. Lisa Murkowski is a name you want backing you as a Democrat, because she captures in those anti-Trump Republicans, the Republicans that support her move to convict former President Trump. And she throws them all to Mary Peltola. It also helps that Mary Peltola, in many ways, has been helped by Sarah Palin. What I mean by that is Sarah Palin, in many ways, has also been a very big proponent of Mary Peltola, not necessarily directly, but when asked who she was going to rank second on her ballot, her being Sarah Palin, she said she wouldn't say. Nick Begich, on the other hand, said he was ranking Sarah Palin second, because having a Republican is more important than having a Democrat. But Sarah Palin can't seem to agree. At least not to the extent that she is openly telling her supporters to vote for Nick Begich. It's so exceptionally easy. Sarah Palin is not stupid electorally at all. She is someone who knows how to win in Alaska and has done it before. I think we all undersell her ability to be an electable candidate. She nearly added a lot to John McCain's campaign should things have not gone in the wrong direction. I think Sarah Palin in herself is not doing this unknowingly. She knows what she is doing, and quite frankly, I think she likes it. I say that because I think that Sarah Palin believes that Mary Peltola, quite frankly, would be a better congresswoman than Nick Begich would be a congressman. It also does not help for the image of separation between the two candidates that Sarah Palin and Mary Peltola hang out. And what I mean by that is they are friends. They literally hang out. Sarah Palin praises Mary Peltola and says the only thing I don't like about her is that she's a Democrat and that I'd wish she'd be a Republican, but otherwise I love her. You cannot have a Republican saying I love the Democrat and not speaking on the other Republican. They can all be friends, but it is very clear that there is tension between the two Republicans, but a lot of consideration and admiration of the top-tier Democrat here, which is Mary Peltola, who is also being backed by another Republican. It's important, it's substantial, and it is driving Mary Peltola's election to victory. I think that the state of Alaska also is one that has seen a consistent leftward trend. Over the past few election cycles, it went from being McCain plus 26 to Romney plus 19 to Trump plus 14 to Trump plus 10. It's not going to be this super competitive swing state, but it is going to get competitive, and Democrats are going to have some victories, and they already have. Right now, they control 100% of Alaska's delegation in Washington, D.C. in the House of Representatives. Isn't that interesting, right? When you think about it from that context, Alaska already has been handing Democrats victories. One thing, though, if you do head over to the 538 forecast or many of the other forecasts, you will find that the Republicans are favored in the Alaska at-large district. Personally, I don't agree. I don't think that makes sense. I think with all of the data that we have seen, Mary Peltola is the absolute favorite. And when you account for all of the data, for some reason, based off of polls alone, it says that the Republicans win 58-42. But I honestly don't know where that's coming from. You can see that in all of these polls, Mary Peltola takes a pretty substantial lead. And by the final round, she ends up winning every single one of these. It's an interesting take on 538's part to have Peltola ahead, but to have Peltola losing, but I think a lot of it could be due to the fact that there is ranked choice voting, which is not exactly easily as calculated as it might be on other House elections. But when looking also at the expectations for Mary Peltola beyond 538, the pundits are much more on tune with Republicans losing this race. The consensus forecast, when you tabulate everything tabulate everything, Alaska leans blue. Alaska leans blue in a consensus forecast. When you look at some of them, it's a toss-up, right? When you look at some of them, it is not decided, but on the crystal ball, lean Dem, right? Cook Political Report, toss-up. Used to be safe Republican. Inside Elections, tilt blue. Split Ticket, toss-up. Fox News, toss-up. Fox News is a toss-up. That tells you a lot of what you need to know. Elections Daily, lean blue, right? Politico, lean blue. What is that telling us? What is that telling me personally as someone who is analyzing this? That the Democrats are ahead, and it shows. The Democrats are leading, and it shows. And that's why it's so substantial. In addition to that, I just think that this is one of the very few special elections that we had this election cycle, and Democrats ended up winning it. And if they expand relative to where they were on August 16th, that will also be a major victory for statewide Democrats in Alaska. In terms of the national composition, no, it will not be as substantial as you might think, just because it is a singular congressional seat. But Mary Peltola could be a future governor, could be a future senator, where the vote will matter a lot more than it does in the House. The Democrats, quite frankly, I saw someone tweet this out, struck gold with Mary Peltola. And that's the exact way that I see it. She is someone who came into this with 11% of the initial vote. Everyone was corralling behind Dr. Al Gross. When he dropped out, everyone was shocked. They assumed that it was just going to clear the field for two Republicans, and I did as well, because Mary Peltola was not this well-known, most electable figure like she is now. And then when the special election happened, Mary Peltola cracked nearly 40% in the first round, and that's when we knew. That's when we knew she would have a realistic shot at victory. And I watched those results come in live. I went on the Facebook live stream for the Alaska Board of Elections, and I watched it get calculated. And when I saw that 91,000 number hover over Mary Peltola with 86,000 to Sarah Palin, I told everyone that cared about this race that this race had been an upset. That Mary Peltola did what many people thought was impossible. What Larry Sabato's crystal ball rated as safe Republican, their first incorrect safe Republican rating. Their first incorrect one where a Democrat won in a safe Republican rating in over 10 years. First one. It happened in Alaska. Now, for the regular election, as I showed you, the ratings are no longer safe and likely Republican. They are much more favored towards the Democratic Party. And as is the data, and as is the electorate. Sarah Palin, Mary Peltola, Nick Begich, Chris Bai, all heading into this November election with a predetermined outcome, not by anything, skewing the ballots, but obviously just based off of the way that voters currently stand. I don't doubt that Republicans could win it in the future, but it does not look like their current slate of candidates are the most electable, nor do I think they are the most winnable, or not winnable, the most coordinated when it comes down to their efforts at electing a Republican. There seems to be a clear disconnect between both of these candidates, and maybe it's more so Palin than Begich, but at the end of the day, it's not a good look, and it's something that really is going to hinder any other Republican's chance of victory besides either Nick Begich for himself or Sarah Palin for herself. So thank you guys so much for watching this video. Make sure to comment down suggestions below. Subscribe on the left if you haven't already, and check out the Instagram and Twitter. At the bottom left of the screen, there's also a Discord server for you to go ahead and join. On the screen, there's a video you can watch, and then a playlist for my 2022 House election analysis videos. Again, thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you all later today.